Everyone. When I chose this topic, anxious for nothing, how to find calm in a chaotic world, I didn't realize that this would be the day that we're all anxiously awaiting to find out who's the next president of this United States, and that our nation is pretty chaotic right now. The reason I chose anxiety to talk about is there was a person on Zoom. She said that her people that she sponsors, that's the number one thing that they report is that they have a lot of anxiety and they don't know how to deal with anxiety. So if any of you have a topic that you'd like for us to talk about, be sure and let me know, because we will absolutely talk about it. You know, I am certainly not an expert really in anything. I'm kind of like Dale Carnegie used to say, that he was a little spurt that just kept on spurting or something. But anyway, I'm just, I'm not an expert on anything, but I'm willing to research and, and talk about any subject. And we deal with anxiety all the time at Shades of Hope with our clients, and I've dealt with anxiety myself. And so there is a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today comes from this book. The title of it is Anxious for Nothing, How to Find Calm in a Chaotic World. This is by Max Lucado, and he's written many books. I think one of his first books was The Rag Keeper, and I remember reading that, and a lot of people did, and we'd all go around with a piece of material pinned to our shoulder to represent that we were, anyway, I can't remember all the story, but anyway, if you've never read any of his books, I would encourage you to. He is one of the little prayer partner for prayer and meditation. We try to read a book. Trying is lying. We've been trying to read another one of his. We've been trying to read Mark Patterson's book for all year, and we haven't done that yet. So trying is lying. One of these days we're going to pick it up and actually read it. But anyway, today I'm talking about anxious for nothing and about anxiety. And so, here in the United States, we have the most anxious nation in the world, the most anxious nation. And we have more to be grateful for, I believe, than any nation on the face of the earth. But we have more anxiety about everything. It is the land of stars and the stars and stripes. But our country has been, has become stress and strife. We live in stress and we live in strife. We live in differences. And so stress-related ailments, anxiety, depression, those ailments cost the nation over $300 billion a year. 2.1 billion of those dollars go for Valium and Xanax medication. And I'm not against medication. Some people absolutely can use some of the medication in today's time. I'm not for Valium and Xanax unless it's under really strict supervision from a physician, because they're the most highly addictive drugs that they are. And, the body chemistry doesn't know the difference between a shot of Scotch and a Valium or Xanax. It does the same thing to the body chemistry. So, with that, I want to say that, anxiety is not a sin. It is an emotion. It is a feeling. And what anxiety is exaggerated fear. It's exaggerated fear. When we're into fear, healthy fear, we're in the moment. When we're into anxiety, it's not about the moment. It's always about the future. Anxiety is about the future. It's, oh my God, what's going to happen? It's the what if, the what if, the what if. It's what we make up in our imagination. It comes out of our brains. And it's amazing to me that, a lot of us, particularly addicts, when we're in our addiction and we get into anxiety, we could make up wonderful stuff out of our imagination, out of our brain, but we don't. We stick to that negative stuff, negative. Well, what's going to happen if, what if I can't stay on a food plan? What if I drink again? What if? And so many of those things never come about. I tell the story of, any busy freeway, let's say, this morning, any busy freeway, let's say the Dallas freeway, people are going to work. Let's say this normal woman, a normie is someone that doesn't have an addiction or doesn't suffer from anxiety and, mental illness. She's just, has her ups and downs, but she's what we call a normal person. I don't know many of them because the people I hang out with are not always, they're more like me, and they have to work through and become, or learn how to live, a balanced life. But nevertheless, here's this woman going to work on a busy freeway, and she has a blowout. Now, that is not anything she wants to have happen on, morning going to work. But she calls AAA to come out and change her tire. She calls her boss and says, tells her what's happening. And her boss says, well, just be safe, get here when you can. No problem. She sits there and reads her phone or makes a call or maybe takes a nap. No big deal. Same freeway, same early morning. Let's say this, we're going to say this young man maybe has a year of sobriety, but he's still dealing with that anxiety, that, exaggerated fear. And let's say he has a blowout. Same freeway, same morning. He has a blowout. And his first thought is, oh my God, I am going to be late to work. I'm going to be fired from my job. I won't be able to pay my child support, and I'll go to jail. That's 5 seconds after he's had a blowout. Now that's the difference between healthy fear and anxiety. Exaggerated fear is anxiety. Everything he's thinking is in the future. It is not in the present. Healthy fear is, God gave us healthy fear for caution and precaution. The house is on fire, get out of the burning house. There is a stop sign at the corner, stop at the stop sign. It's healthy fear, healthy fear. For addict of any sort, eating disorder, any of us, particularly people in early recovery, coming up on the holidays. Here it is, November 4th, by the way. It's my middle daughter, Kim's birthday. Happy birthday, Kim. The day that she was born, I remember waking up and saying, we've got a new baby and a new president. And that was the day Johnson was elected. That's been quite a few years ago. But anyway, see, I've kind of got off track. I'll get back on track in just a minute. What was I talking about? Y'all help me. Y'all you're not listening to me. Okay. All right.
Anxiety and a normie between somebody.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So
healthy fear.
Healthy fear. And so addicts of any sort, and particularly, that's what I was going to talk about, particularly this time of the year, coming up on the holidays. If a new recovering eating disorder person, alcoholic, addict, anyone in early recovery, if they don't have some healthy fear, they're not showing up. I mean, they're not living in reality, because going through the holidays is one of the hardest things for addicts to do, particularly people young in recovery, new in recovery. Because, a lot of times we'll go back home, and a lot of times that is the scene of the crime. That is where the addiction started. And so I'm not going to get into a lot of talking about the holidays, but it is, people will get very anxious during the holidays. And when an addict gets anxious and they get nervous and they get up in their brain, the brain will tell them, well, I know how you can ease this anxiety. The alcoholic brain says, just go take a drink. The drug addict brain says, what about, Valium will help that. Eating disorder people, say, our brain says, go eat something. Go eat something and then throw it up. Find a way to get rid of it. Or for the anorexic brain says, I know how you can ease that anxiety. Starve yourself. And then your brain will be preoccupied with something else and you won't have to be so anxious. So anxiety is a big problem in our country, and it's a big problem for addicts. Now, there is a chemical mental illness, anxiety, that is on the clinical side that is diagnosable anxiety. That too can be treated. Now, if you're suffering from clinical anxiety, and a lot of times it will be coupled with OCD, will also be coupled with depression, what I would recommend is get a good therapist. A good therapist that works with a good psychiatrist or someone that can prescribe meds, that's not a pill pusher, but can prescribe some healthy medication that can bring down those symptoms. All medication does, it'll either bring you down to baseline or it will bring you up to baseline. When you're on some healthy medication, it won't jack you up or put you down. And that's how you can tell if you really have a diagnosed anxiety, is because some small, and we recommend, and I'm not a psychiatrist or a doctor, so I don't recommend anything about medication, but what I do encourage doctors to do is start very slow, because sometimes just a mild medication can help bring down that anxiety level. But not everyone has the clinical anxiety, and a lot of addicts, particularly a lot of people, suffer from anxiety. And like I said, anxiety is about fear of the future. I want you to think about it, fear of the future. Think about what is going to happen, what could happen, what's going to happen if that doesn't happen, what if, the what if syndromes. It's like the henny penny, that story rhyme, the henny penny, the sky is falling, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. And she pretty much got everybody around her convinced that the sky was going to fall, and it still hadn't fallen. And so a lot of the anxiety is made up between our two ears. We make it up out of our imagination. Now, I'll tell you, the whole body can break down from the anxiety. And what can happen is that stress-related illnesses can happen with untreated anxiety. You name the stress-related illness, and that can happen. We're seeing young people, children being diagnosed with anxiety. I have my opinion about that, and with I guess $5 or $6, you could go and get you a cup of coffee at Starbucks. It's worth about my opinion. We used to say for a dime you could go get you a cup of coffee. It's about what's worth, my opinion. But in my opinion, what a lot of times is happening with our young people is too much technology. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. Too much technology. And what it's doing to their brains. And their brains and it's not just kids, all of us that are so dependent on our phones and our electrical gadgets that our brains get so overactivated, we don't know how to carry on just a normal, healthy conversation. Or I see that particularly with kids getting addicted to games, getting addicted to porn, whether it's adults or kids that get addicted on those sites for porn or you name it. And it can create dysfunction in the brain, and it can show up as anxiety, OCD, and depression. So, we can recover from it. There is a recovery. Now, one of the things that those of us that are in a 12-step program, that we are so fortunate, when you go to a 12-step program meeting and you hear a speaker, or most anybody that's been around a while, before they speak, when they introduce themselves, a lot of them will say, my name is so-and-so, and I am a grateful recovering, and then they'll say their addiction. I don't know of any of us that are just real grateful for having an addiction. I think for most of us, and myself included, what I'm grateful for, yes, I've had many forms of addictions, plus my eating disorder and process addictions. But what I'm grateful for is a planned program of action called the 12 Steps that has taught me how to take a problem to the resolution stage. Now, when Bill W., when they wrote the steps, along with some help from some of the other members in the program, and when it was published, everybody thought, oh, this is such a way of life. It's wonderful. And, an article came out in the newspaper, or Post magazine, Saturday Evening Post. Jack Alexander, author years ago, wrote an article about the Big Book and the 12 Steps. Well, people wanted to put it into schools, every church, every organization. That was going to be the solution for the world. That didn't last very long, because the 12 Steps, a lot of people could use that program. A lot of people need that type of guidance to learn how to live life on life's terms. But it's only for those of us who want it. And usually the way we want it is through a lot of pain. I have never seen anybody show up at a meeting or show up at treatment saying, well, this was on my plan in January of what I want to do for the coming year, and I just wanted to come to treatment. People don't do that. They don't plan it. They come because of pain. They come because of the anxiety that's killing them, the depression, the OCD, the using some kind of a substance that they cannot stop on their own. So most people don't seek help because they need it, but they seek help because they want it, that they're sick and tired of being sick and they want to recover. So that is a modality that can work for anyone. And it can help, I'll promise you, the anxiety and the OCD if people are willing to use it. You go to large cities and there's 12-step meetings everywhere for anxiety and anonymous OCD, you name it, there is a 12-step program. So that is one of the best ways to treat anxiety or any other mental illness or an addiction, I think. But then there's other ways. And what Max Lucado talked about, he's talked about calm, C-A-L-M, and I'm about to put Bill to sleep. He is yawning. He is so calm, he's about to go to sleep there. So, but calm, when that anxiety comes up, one of the best things that we can do is to choose, make a choice in this minute, in the moment of that anxiety, is to make a choice to do something different. One of the things that people, when they suffer from anxiety, they are so up in their head, they can't think, they can't reason. And one of the main things is to calm themselves, if they can breathe, just take a breath. And then anchor themselves. Look around the room and find something. One of the things that we tell people is look around the room and find something red. Right now I'm looking at Misty's purse. There's a red rose on her purse, a picture. If I have anxiety, if I could focus on that might help. Or look out and see the trees, see the leaves. Do anything to get out of our mind at that moment that we're feeling the anxiety, to stop and look around and anchor ourselves. Another thing is just put your feet flat on the floor and breathe. Sometimes it's helpful to stand up. Sometimes it's helpful to stand up and stand on your toes. Do all of this with intention. You have to do, if you're going to want to recover from anxiety, you have to do it with intention. Because the anxiety it's real. I mean, it is real at the time, and if you give into it, it will win. It will win over you. And so you have to be intentional about doing something different. I'm not saying this is easy. I'm saying you have to be intentional and find different ways to stop what's going on in your head in that moment, to disconnect. One of the things is go pick up the phone and call someone, a safe person, and one thing you do is check on them. Ask how they're doing. It doesn't always have to be about you or us, because I'll tell you, I hate to tell you folks, but anxiety, OCD, is much like addiction. This is why it can work with addiction treatment so well. Is because so much of it is made up between our two ears. Now, I'm not saying it's not real. I mean, we can make up a lot of stuff in our heads. And so anxiety is about a brain chemistry. And that can be changed. Like I said, if you go to a therapist, get diagnosed, if you need some medication, do that. But that's just going to get you to the starting gate. That is not going to be the answer for anxiety. It's about learning how to deal with it, and it's learning about how to change your life in the midst of it and not give in to the anxiety. So the calm, the C is celebrate the small things. Celebrate, find something you can celebrate in the moment. And it won't take you but a minute, I would think, if you can get out yourself long enough and breathe through the anxiety to find something to celebrate. The sun is out. I live in a free country. Find something in the moment to celebrate. So that's the C. And then, saying that simple little prayer, God help me, that in itself can switch that brain instantly. And then, I'm kind of got ahead of myself, but then A from calm is to ask God to relieve you from the anxiety. Now, when we're in the midst of it, a lot of times God's the last thing that we think about. I'll tell you, years ago, I suffered from a lot of anxiety. I'm going to give you a little, I can remember this as vividly as if it happened 20 minutes ago. This is a small example of how I lived my life many years ago. All right, my husband had a small oil field equipment business, and he hauled oil field equipment all over the United States. We had a house full of little kids. I weighed, 260, 270, I don't know. I was very morbidly obese. We hardly went anywhere because it was hard to travel with the kids, and besides, we were busy people. He called me early one morning after he got to work, and he said, honey, I've got to take a rotary hose up to Ardmore, Oklahoma. And that was where my grandmother used to live, and I had a beloved aunt that lived there. And he said, I was wondering if you and the kids would want to ride up there with me, and we can spend the night and come back. And I thought, what a wonderful idea that I could go see Aunt Lily. And she'd never seen my kids and all that, so I hung up the phone. I got so anxious about trying to figure out how to pack for all of those kids and get us ready within the hour to go on that little trip. I had so much anxiety, I was paralyzed. I remember going to the refrigerator door, opening the refrigerator, and there was, just looking. Those that have eating disorders, you can probably identify with this. We cruise the refrigerator, we cruise the cabinets, but I opened the refrigerator door to see if there's anything in there that might help me. The only thing was in there was a cold bowl of spaghetti. I didn't like spaghetti then. I don't like spaghetti now. I mean, I like some of the Misty's, but nevertheless, I've never really been a big fond eater of spaghetti. But I reached my hand in that bowl of cold spaghetti and brought it out and crammed that spaghetti into my mouth and started chewing and swallowed it. And in a few minutes, I got that sense of ease and comfort. I calmed down. I didn't know anything about carbohydrate addiction or sugar addiction. I knew nothing about that. I just knew when I filled my mouth up and filled my stomach up and it went down, I felt calm. And I got my stuff together and packed and we went on that trip. That is just a little bit of example of how food helped me to ease the anxiety. And then other things. It wasn't just food. It could be work. It could be anything. And so that is where it can be a very definite brain chemistry, is when your brain is so overactive that you put something in your body that can ease that pain. That is a chemical. That is a chemical reaction. So A is to ask God to remove you this moment from that anxiety. Ask God, stop in the midst of it. God, help me. If you have to get on your knees, do that. Take some action. God, help me. That's A. And then L is when you get on your hands and you ask God to help, leave the anxiety or your problems in God's hands. Visualize putting the anxiety in God's hands. Now I will tell you, these little tricks, they're not little tricks. There's action that you can take, that we can take in the moment. This takes up a lot of time. And sometimes people are so used to being anxious, they just don't know what to do. They're just crazy acting and, I can't stop this, I can't stop. I mean, I've been around them and they get so anxious. And, their bodies will shake. I'm not denying that the anxiety is real. But in the midst of it, if you could just stop for a few moments and leave the anxiety in God's hands, visualize putting it in God's hands. Or if you have, a really healthy sponsor, or a really healthy parent, or somebody, visualize them helping God hold the anxiety. Maybe God needs a little help. I don't think he does, but if you have a safe person that you can visualize, them holding the space for you. Just holding the space for you. That is leave the anxiety in God's hands. And then M is push the pause button and live in the moment. Living in the moment will bring you back to reality. The moment, keep in mind, anxiety, whether it's clinical anxiety or anxiety that, a lot of us can experience, and, we get scared about something or whatever, and we can get overexcited and it turns to anxiety. What can happen if you can stay in that moment? Because remember, fear is about the present. Anxiety is about the future. It's about what's going to happen. What are they going to do? What's going to happen if this president gets elected? What's going to happen if that president gets elected? Well, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? And there's people all over the United States threatening this second, full of anxiety, full of fear, practically foaming at the mouth about what's going to happen. We need to have some healthy fear. Absolutely. Healthy fear is about we live in the moment and we take action. And one of the things for anxiety is, like I said, that moment, stay in the moment. And one of my mantras, one of my favorite verses in the Bible, something I've used every day, still do, is something, if I get a little anxious about something, or get into a little fear about something, what I stop in the moment. And I do this every day, probably several times a day, particularly, if I'm working with clients and all, because, when I go into a room to work with a client, if I don't invite God into that, I'll tell you what, those clients aren't going to get the full value of whatever they're here for, because left to own devices, I don't have much to give people. But through, God working through me or other people at the center, but I have to pause and invite God in to every situation. So what my mantra is be still and know that He is God. That's found in Psalms. Be still and know that He is God. And then I break it down. Be still and know. Just have a knowing. Be still and know. Just have a knowing. If you can get still enough and still your mind enough, God might help you find an answer. And then take it another step. Be still. Still your body. Actually be still for a moment. And still your mind, because we get all into this, overworking, overthinking, over anxious, over, and it's about be still. And then the last one is be. Is to learn to just be who God uniquely made us to be. And I believe that is perfectly imperfect, precious, and free. That is who God made us to be. We make it so much more than that, and we take on responsibilities a lot of times that are not ours. Worries, worry that about things that's not even ours to worry about. What worry is picking out the very worst thing that can happen in a situation and focusing on it. That's what worry is. Picking out the very worst consequence and focusing on that. And when you do that, that anxiety is going to come up. That is back to that what if. And we have some great imaginations. We can make up a lot of stuff. I have several God boxes that I've accumulated through the years. And a God box is, when you have something that you worry about or something that's coming up that you have fear over or anxiety or whatever, any problem, write it out, fold it up, and put it in that God box. And I would recommend, if you've never had a God box, I would encourage you to make one. Get some kind of a box. It doesn't matter, or a can, decorate it, make it look pretty, or doesn't have to. Just get your wooden box, any box, and write down the problem that is absolutely driving your bus today. Write it out, fold it up, put it in that God box, and know that God's got it. And go off and leave it in that box. So like I said, I have several of them. And so one day I was cleaning out stuff not long ago, and I was going through one of those God boxes. And the paper was all yellow. I mean, it was, real crumbly kind of. I mean, I'm old and I've been doing this a long time. So the paper had a chance to turn yellow. And as I was going through there, not one of those things that I put in that box that I had such a fear of happening, not a one of them had come true. None. Not a one of them had come true. So, we waste a lot of time worrying about the what ifs. What's this, that future, getting into the future is scary. Yeah, we need to plan for the future, as best we can. Here in this pandemic, I don't know that any of us planned for this, but, we make some little plans and get ready for them not to work out. But basically, it's about learning to live in the moment. And those things that, I run across a couple of those things that I was willing to kill myself over. They were so bad. My life was so bad. I was going to kill myself over it. But I wrote it down on that piece of paper, folded it up, and put it in the box, and went on about my life, and I'm still here, so apparently I didn't kill myself over it. So much of our problems come out of our imagination. We make them up. And so what we need to do is narrow it down and find out what is true about the situation, what you can do about it, and if you can't do anything about it, give it a good letting alone. And a lot of those things are none of our business. The things that in the past that I've gotten so anxious about, before I got into recovery, it was about my husband's drinking, my mother's drinking, my kids this, it was all about someone else. It wasn't even any of my business. So with that, I hope you've gotten something out of it, but I want to repeat, be still and know that He is God, and He's got us in the palm of His hand. Be still and know. Have a knowing it's going to be all right. It may not look like everything you want it to look like, but it's going to be okay. And then be still. Just still your body, and then learn to be the precious child of God that you are. So let's talk about it. How do you deal with anxiety? If you have clinical anxiety, how are you dealing with it? And do you have better days? What triggers it? What could you offer other people? Let's talk, share where you are with anxiety. Who would like to start?